chapter 39. I'm reading from the New Living Translation. When Joseph was taken to Egypt by the Ishmaelite traders, he was purchased by Potiphar, an Egyptian officer. Potiphar was captain of the guard for Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. The Lord was with Joseph, so he succeeded in everything he did. As he served in the home of his Egyptian master, Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. This pleased Potiphar, so he soon made Joseph his personal attendant. He put him in charge of his entire household and everything he owned. From the day Joseph was put in charge of his master's household and property, the Lord began to bless Potiphar's household for Joseph's sake. So when you have the blessing of the Lord on you, favor in your life, you tend to bless others just by them being in proximity to you. All his household affairs ran smoothly, and his crops and livestock flourished. You'll even see this in different companies, where when believers are brought in, the stocks, the service, the customer satisfaction, all of the resources just go through the roof because of that blessing that's on those believers. So Potiphar gave Joseph complete administrative responsibility over everything he owned. With Joseph there, he didn't worry about a thing except what kind of food to eat. When the Lord's blessing is on you, there's nothing to really worry about. There's nothing to really be anxious about when God's favor is on you and on your life and he's prospering you. This is why you see Potiphar didn't have to worry about anything but what food he was going to eat because of that covering and that grace that was on Joseph. Joseph was a very handsome and well-built young man, and Potiphar's wife soon began to look at him lustfully. "Come and sleep with me," she demanded. But Joseph refused. "Look," he told her, "my master trusts me with everything in his entire household. No one here has more authority than I do. He has held back nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How could I do such a wicked thing? It would be a great sin against God." A man of integrity here. Here, the author is showing you Joseph's integrity, his ability to stick to principles and ethics, even when no one is explicitly watching. Here you have Potiphar's wife lustfully looking upon Joseph, trying to get him to essentially violate his ethics, his principles, and also the home of Potiphar, and also his Lord, right? He has this connection with the Most High. And sometimes it can be like that with women and with men, where you'll find yourself compromising or being tested, where you're kind of faced with compromising your ethics and your values. She kept putting pressure on Joseph day after day, but he refused to sleep with her and he kept out of her way as much as possible. Fellas, sometimes that's what you got to do, man. If you're being tempted, maybe you're married, maybe you got a wife, maybe you got a spouse, you're trying to do the right thing, stay away from her, man, as much as possible. If you know you take one bus route and every time you go, the same time every day, you look over and it's a woman you looking at lustfully that could put you in trouble, or you're taking the route through work, a circuit through work and through the hallways, avoid it, man. It's not worth it. That's how a lot of brothers end up losing it all. It says here he refused to sleep with her and he kept out of her way as much as possible. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, "Come on, sleep with me." Joseph tore himself away, but he left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. "Look," she said, "my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us." All right. "He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed." You even see this a lot, in the black community dealing with these white folks. How many times have brothers got caught up or been lied upon in the court system in the United States because of something these white identity extremists be saying? right? We came here as slaves. So you see a lot of this same rhetoric, even present day. And this was thousands of years ago. And you see it today where a lot of black men are like Joseph, right? And the white girls, they're screaming, hey, look, this guy did this guy this. That's why you brothers need to be more careful than ever. There's wisdom. This is the message for today. You brothers, especially if you're handsome, maybe you think you got swag and all this shit going for you. You got to be careful around these women, especially the white identity extremist women. Look here with Joseph, chapter 39 of Genesis, verse 13, right? Actually, verse 11. One day, however, no one else was around when he went in to do his work. She came and grabbed him by his cloak, demanding, come on, sleep with me. Joseph tore himself away, but his left his cloak in her hand as he ran from the house. When she saw that she was holding his cloak and he had fled, she called out to her servants. Soon all the men came running. Look, she said, my husband has brought this Hebrew slave here to make fools of us. He came into my room to rape me, but I screamed. When he heard me scream, he ran outside and got away, but he left his cloak behind with me. You brothers, don't be leaving shit around. Do the right thing. If you're getting harassed by some chick, it could be black or white, but specifically white girls, because you're getting harassed by a black girl, they care, but not as much as they do as these white identity extremist girls. Peep game. Don't be leaving shit. Don't be flirting that word. Don't be doing shit to put yourself in a situation, man, where you're going to lose it all. These tactics and these strategies by the enemy have been going on since Genesis, right? A lot of these girls, I believe, Potiphar's wife was like a white chick or some type of olive colored chick. I believe that. And Joseph was a black man, because it's so easy for people, to believe. I believe this colorism shit has been going on for a very, very long time. Lord, forgive me for cursing, but I really believe it. A lot of you guys gonna act ignorant and oh, don't say this, don't say that. This is the raw truth. I believe colorism, racism, discrimination, whether it be from your tribe, your culture, your identity, whatever, this has been going on for centuries. She kept the cloak with her until her husband came home. This is verse 16 out of 39. Then she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said, just lying through her teeth, right? The devil, he operates through women too. Women can be some liars, deceivers, and destroyers too. A lot of you guys grew up with your mama. You ain't have a father in the house, so you put these women on the pedestal. You think they can't do no wrong until you're the victim, right? Until you lose it all, right? The author's trying to tell you. Then she told him her story. The Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. See, she addresses him by his title, the Hebrew slave, right? Catch a game, right? She didn't say, hey, this honorable man. Hey, this man that brought us all this wealth. Hey, this man that's blessed and honored by the Lord, right? You brought him in the house, all this wealth we got. She didn't acknowledge him by the prosperity and the honorable integrity that he had. Oh, this Hebrew slave, right? So you'll have the devil, he'll use like, that black man, or that nigger, or even in different cultures, that man, pay attention to that, man. The devil knows how to use these women. He knows how to use the enemy to, kind of use these real sort of like worldly titles against you. And of course they ran with it, right? That's how it works, right? She kept the cloak with her until her husband, this is 16, until her husband came home. Then she told him her story. That Hebrew slave you brought into our house tried to come in and fool around with me, she said. When I screamed, he ran outside, leaving his cloak with me, right? 19, Potiphar was furious. Brother didn't even question. Man, really? Seriously? What? All this wealth, all this blessing, you ain't got no reputation doing that. You never heard anything. You ain't the only woman on the property. I haven't heard any stories like this with anybody else, right? Potiphar was furious when he heard his wife's story about how Joseph had treated her. So he took Joseph and threw him into the prison where the king's prisoners were held, and there he remained, right? 39, 19, 20, 21. But the Lord was with Joseph in the prison and showed him his faithful love. And the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. It don't matter how much these enemies try to attack us as black folks, try to ruin our character, assassinate our characters with all this propaganda in the media, very hateful white identity extremism. It don't matter what they do, the Lord is with us. I believe that. I'm passionate about that. The Lord is with us no matter where we go. They could throw us in jail. They could try to get rid of us. They could do whatever they do to black people. We are blessed and highly favored. The white identity extremists don't like to hear that shit because they got to have this narrative where black is bad, white is good. So they're going to go against the grain of everything righteous with these black folks in America. But I believe that the Lord made Joseph a favorite with the prison warden. Before long, the warden put Joseph in charge of all the other prisoners and over everything that happened in the prison. When you're covered, when you're blessed by the Lord, it doesn't matter what the enemy does, what these white folks do, what the haters say, even in your own black community, you're going to win in the end. Telling you, the warden had no more worries because Joseph took care of everything. The Lord was with him and caused everything he did to succeed. Chapter 40. Sometime later, Pharaoh's chief cupbearer and chief baker offended their royal master. Pharaoh became angry with these two officials and he put them in the prison where Joseph was, in the palace of the captain of the guard. They remained in prison for quite some time, and the captain of the guard assigned them to Joseph, who looked after them. While they were in prison, Pharaoh's cupbearer and baker each had a dream one night, and each dream had its own meaning. When Joseph saw them the next morning, he noticed that they both looked upset. "Why do you look so worried today?" he asked them. And they replied, "We both had dreams last night, but no one can tell us what they mean. Interpreting dreams is God's business." Joseph replied, "Go ahead and tell me what your dreams. Go ahead and tell me your dreams." So the chief cupbearer told Joseph his dream first. "In my dream," he said, "I saw a grapevine in front of me. The vine had 3 branches that began to bud and blossom, and soon it produced clusters of ripe grapes. I was holding Pharaoh's wine cup in my hand, so I took a cluster of grapes and squeezed the juice into the cup. Then I placed the cup in Pharaoh's hand." "This is what the dream means," Joseph said. "The 3 branches represent 3 days. Within 3 days, Pharaoh will lift you up and restore you to your position as his chief cupbearer. And please remember me and do me a favor when things go well for you. Mention me to Pharaoh so he might let me out of this place. For I was kidnapped from my homeland, the land of the Hebrews, and now I'm here in prison, but I did nothing to deserve it." When the chief baker saw that Joseph had given the first dream such a positive interpretation, he said to Joseph, "I had a dream too. In my dream, there were 3 baskets of white pastries stacked on my head. The top basket contained all kinds of pastries for Pharaoh, but the birds came and ate them in the basket on my head, from the basket on my head. This is what the dream means," Joseph told him. "The 3 baskets also represent 3 days. 3 days from now, Pharaoh will lift you up and impale your body on a pole. The birds will come and peck away at your flesh." Pharaoh's birthday came 3 days later, and he prepared a banquet for all of his officials and staff. He summoned his chief cupbearer and chief baker to join the other officials. He then restored the chief cupbearer to his former position so he could again hand Pharaoh his cup. But Pharaoh impaled the chief baker just as Joseph had predicted when he interpreted his dream. Pharaoh Pharaoh's chief cupbearer, however, forgot all about Joseph, never giving him another thought. So this is 41. 2 full years later, Pharaoh dreamed that he was standing on the bank of the Nile River. In his dream, he saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. Then he saw 7 more cows come up behind them from the Nile. But these were scrawny and thin. These cows stood beside the fat cows on the riverbank. Then the scrawny, thin cows ate the 7 healthy, fat cows. At this point in the dream, Pharaoh woke up, but he fell asleep again and had a second dream. This time he saw 7 heads of grain, plump and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were shriveled and withered by the east wind. And these thin heads swallowed up the 7 plump, well formed heads. Then Pharaoh woke up again and realized it was a dream. The next morning, Pharaoh was disturbed by the dreams, so he called for all the magicians and the wise men of Egypt. When Pharaoh told them his dreams, not one of them could tell him what they meant. Finally, the king's chief cupbearer spoke up. "Today I have been reminded of my failure," he told Pharaoh. "Some time ago, you were angry with the chief baker and me, and you imprisoned us in the palace of the captain of the guard. One night, the chief baker and I each had a dream, and each dream had its own meaning. There was a young Hebrew man with us in the prison who was a slave of the captain of the guard. We told him our dreams, and he told us what each of our dreams meant. And everything happened just as he had predicted. I was restored to my position as a cupbearer, and the chief baker was executed and impaled on a pole. Pharaoh sent for Joseph at once, and he was quickly brought from the prison. After he shaved and changed his clothes, he went in and stood before Pharaoh. Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, I had a dream last night, and no one here can tell me what it means. But I have heard that when you hear about a dream, you can interpret it. It is beyond my power to do this, Joseph replied, but God can tell you what it means and set you at ease. So Pharaoh told Joseph his dream. In my dream, he said, I was standing on the bank of the Nile River, and I saw 7 fat, healthy cows come up out of the river and begin grazing in the marsh grass. But then I saw 7 sick-looking cows, scrawny and thin, come up after them. I've never seen such sorry-looking animals in all the land of Egypt. These thin, scrawny cows ate the 7 fat cows, but afterward you wouldn't have known it, for they were still as thin as scrawny as before. Then I woke up. In my dream, I also saw 7 heads of grain, full and beautiful, growing on a single stalk. Then 7 more heads of grain appeared, but these were blighted, shriveled, and withered by the east wind. And the shriveled head swallowed the 7 healthy heads. I told these dreams to the magicians, but no one could tell me what they mean. Joseph responded, both of Pharaoh's dreams mean the same thing. God is telling Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The 7 healthy cows and the 7 healthy heads of grain both represent 7 years of prosperity. The 7 thin, scrawny cows that came up later and 7 thin heads of grain withered by the east wind represent 7 years of famine. This will happen just as I have described it, for God has revealed to Pharaoh in advance what he is about to do. The next 7 years will be a period of great prosperity throughout the land of Egypt. But afterward, there will be 7 years of famine so great that all the prosperity will be forgotten in Egypt. Famine will destroy the land. This famine will be so severe that even the memory of the good years will be erased. As for having 2 similar dreams, it means that these events have been decreed by God and he will soon make them happen. Therefore, Pharaoh should find an intelligent and wise man and put him in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh should appoint supervisors over the land and let them collect 1/5 of all the crops during the 7 good years. Have them gather all the food produced in the good years that are just ahead and bring it to the Pharaoh storehouses. Store it away and guard it so there will be food in the cities. That way, there will be enough to eat when the 7 years of famine come to the land of Egypt. Otherwise, the famine will destroy the land. Joseph's suggestions were well received by Pharaoh and his officials. So Pharaoh asked his officials, can we find anyone else like this man so obviously filled with the Spirit of God? Then Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has revealed the meaning of the dreams to you, clearly no one else is as intelligent or wise as you are. You will be in charge of my court, and all my people will take orders from you. Only I, sitting on my throne, will have a rank higher than yours. Pharaoh said to Joseph, I hereby put you in charge of the entire land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh removed his signet ring from his hand and placed it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in fine linen clothing and hung a gold chain around his neck. Then he had Joseph ride in the chariot reserved for his second in command. And wherever Joseph went, the command was shouted, kneel down. So Pharaoh put Joseph in charge of all of Egypt. And Pharaoh said to him, I am Pharaoh, but no one will lift a hand or foot in the entire land of Egypt without your approval. Then Pharaoh gave Joseph a new Egyptian name, Zephnath Paneah. He also gave him a wife whose name was Asnath. She was the daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. So Joseph took charge of the entire land of Egypt. He was 30 years old when he began serving in the court of Pharaoh, the king of Egypt. When Joseph left Pharaoh's presence, he inspected the entire land of Egypt. As predicted, for 7 years the land produced bumper crops. During those years, Joseph gathered all the crops grown in Egypt and stored the grain from the surrounding fields in the cities. He piled up huge amounts of grain like sand on the seashore. Finally, he stopped keeping records because there was too much to measure. During this time, before the first of the famine years, 2 sons were born to Joseph and his wife, Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, the priest of On. Joseph named his older son Manasseh, for he said, God has made me forget all my troubles and everyone in my father's family. Joseph named his second son Ephraim, for he said, God has made me fruitful in this land of my grief. At last, the 7 years of bumper crops throughout the land of Egypt came to an end. Then the 7 years of famine began, just as Joseph had predicted. The famine also struck all the surrounding countries, but throughout Egypt there was plenty of food. Eventually, however, the famine spread throughout the land of Egypt as well. And when the people cried out to Pharaoh for food, he told them, go to Joseph and do whatever he tells you. So, with severe famine everywhere, Joseph opened up the storehouses and distributed grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout the land of Egypt. And people from all around came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe throughout the world. Have a blessed day.